What's going on, fam? What is going on? Please, please, please take time to hit the like button. Cost you no money. What is up, fam? What is going on? You know, it is quite a day. It is quite a day. We are living in quite an era. I am happy to be a part of it, ADOS fam. How about you? How about you? How about you? How about you? So I want to give everybody time. Please, if you have not had a chance, hit that bell. Let's do a little housekeeping before we get to what we got to get to, what we got to get to. You know, I'm late as usual, but this house come from the airport. Somebody kind of insulted me in the airport, so I had to do something like this. But anyway, it's all good, fam. It's all good because I don't have any problems. Somebody told me, Yvette, you might start wearing a wig. I'll be damned. So, fam, let's get to it. Please, please, please make sure. Please, please, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button if you have not done it already. Please make sure that you hit the bell if you have not hit the bell already, fam. I would appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate you for doing that. That costs you no money. If you want to donate, you know you can always go to donatebrown.com. We got the website, should be coming soon within the next week or so. We also, please, please, please go to subscribe to brown.com. That also costs you no money. Add your name to my mailing list. Please go to patreon.com/ycarnell. I would like for you to do that if you can. If you cannot, please understand that everything that you do monetarily, you can cancel immediately with no help from me. No need to email me or anything. It's self-serve. So if you want to do that, you can. If not, do all this free stuff right here. All the subscribe stuff. And guess what, fam? You know what I would really appreciate that you would do for me? You know what I would really appreciate? If you would actually join me for the book club August 1st. Join me for the book club August 1st. How the Irish became white. We're going to talk about that because we'll talk about a lot of things that has us situated on the bottom of a bottom caste. All of that stuff we're going to have a conversation about. Okay? The newsletter link is in the description. Not of this one because we're live, but it should be in the rest of them except for one that I had to cut and re-put up. But I try to put the newsletter link so it's automatically put in the description link. So if you can, please do that as well. That's $2 a month. I almost forgot about it. Thank you, fam, for mentioning it. So these moths are dive bombing me. What's wrong with everybody? Y'all, Pan-African, whatever. So anyway, fam, let's get to it. And I put out the little things and they still just be coming at me. They be raiding me. Everything just seems to want to come at me today. But it's all right. I'm built for it. So, fam, listen. Do you all remember? Because I want to talk a little bit about solidarity. I want to talk about global solidarity. So I'm going to come to the New Yorker article that I think a lot of you already know and kind of remember. I'm going to come to that one. But I'm going to come all the way back to a new one because we got two ones now. We got two ones. Like the little kids said, little time. We got two ones. So... But before I do that, I want to go to something else. I want to find something else and go to it. Because there was an interesting little kind of brown fight, or whatever you want to call it, this morning between Susan Rice and another gentleman who happens to be a diplomat, a Chinese diplomat, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken. So I want to go to what he said, and I want to go to what she said, and I want to use that to paint the picture. Sometimes, family, we have to paint the picture of what is to come. Paint the picture with pretty colors. So here we go. If you're in Washington, D.C., you know the white never go to the Southwest area because it's an area for black and Latin. Mostly black, but maybe that's changed since I was there. There's a saying, black in and white out, which means that as long as a black family enters, white people will quit and price of apartment will fall sharply. Well, Lee Zhu, what you have described is the contagion of blackness. That's what you've just described. Whether or not you know it or not, blacks are a contagion to wealth, and that's what you just described, Mr. Diplomat. I don't care how you feel about everything else of what you just said about 22 countries against China on Beijing issue. None is Muslim country. Austria, Belgium, Canada. I know you were trying to do some other things, but you kind of hit on something that you kind of hit on a little something that made some of our people very uncomfortable because we don't like to talk about the truth. So here is what Susan Rice said. And I saw this today. I don't know when it happened. Happened like a couple days ago. But he deleted his tweets and she probably left hers up. You are a racist disgrace and shockingly ignorant too. In normal times, you should be PNG'd for this. I don't know what that means. Ambassador Quee, I expect better of you and your team. Please do the right thing and send him home. Well, he had a little something to say himself. We had a little something to say himself about everything that happened, and he wasn't backing down. See, that's the benefit of like having the backing of your country in such a way. You are such a disgrace too, and shockingly ignorant too. He would ham on it. You are ignorant too. I am based in Islamabad. Truth hurts. I am simply telling the truth. I stayed in Washington D.C. 10 years. To label someone who speaks the truth that you don't want to hear is racist and disgraceful. And you are disgraceful and disgraceful. Whatever he said, and the English wasn't right. But whatever he said is what he said. Now, I bring that to you in a specific context. First of all, if you hear anybody else talking, they will say, oh, it's solidarity. You know, the Chinese people and the American people and the blacks. No. They fighting on Twitter. But more importantly than that, he spoke an unspoken truth. And it was globalized in terms of how he framed it and what he understood as having been someone who came here and worked. Lived in D.C. He said what he said. Listen, I noticed a phenomenon. I've noticed a particular phenomenon that puts like these black Latino people, he said Latino, but like that's now, but it's all the way back from redlining from when there weren't many Latino people. He said, I've noticed a phenomenon. Now see, we can trace that phenomenon. That phenomenon is worldwide. This way in which ADOS are bottom casted is not a particular phenomenon that is new, and it's not something that doesn't happen elsewhere. And it's not something that was just done to us by one group. I know it hurts, but this is the New Yorker. This is not Yvette Carnell talking. This is not me just talking to you off my head on the porch with one too many mint juleps or something. This is us having a conversation. This is us having a conversation about there is no better paper. A paper of record than the New Yorker. What did the New Yorker tell us by the same writer, I believe? My great-grandfather, the Nigerian slave trader, talked about, if you don't have it up, please just take a moment, take your time, don't worry, I'll wait. Bring it up, and we're going to talk about some of the things that were said in that article. I'm not even going to go deep into it. I'm going to talk about how they traded slaves, how her great-grandfather was proud of trading slaves, kept the bones of some of the slaves. Some of the slaves were traded. Now, then we talking about our people right now. I'm not talking about what else they might go about our people. Right? Kept the bones of those slaves. Some of those slaves were buried alive. A lot of stuff going on right here. Somebody say mint juleps were awesome. I understand, but I'm just saying this is what we're talking about. Now understand that that's the context. When you write for the New Yorker, the premier American magazine, all of that stuff is fact checked. You're not writing on your local blog. You're not writing for some little haberdashy kind of paper. You're writing for the New Yorker. We're gonna have to go figure this out. We're going to have to go make sure you're telling the truth. Okay? So that's what we heard. That's what we understood. But they went into, understand the distinction, please. They went into the slave trader that traded slaves over here and elsewhere, I'm sure. But over here, who were our ancestors, you know, they traded into how we got here, but they didn't talk about their own slaves. Now, I want you to keep in mind, keep in context, and put a pin in it. Put a pin in it that when we talk about black, when you come here, it's all American. We just all black. I mean, it's not all American. We all black. We all black the same. Hey, bruh. Hey, sister. Hey, sister. Hey, brother. Bruh. Whatever you want. Bruv. Whatever you want to call it. We're supposed to be all black the same, right? But no. What this shows, and it expands out, it's not just, I don't want to seem like I'm picking on them. You're the only, I don't want to pick on Nigeria, but y'all the only ones writing in the New Yorker, so I'm gonna go from there. Everything else I can't research. But so it's, hey, bruv, and all this stuff, we're all black the same, and we're all the same people, and we gotta stick together when we're here in America. But apparently you didn't feel that way about your own brother Nigerians. A matter of fact, not only did you not feel that way, you still don't feel that way because the descendants of slaves in your own country are going through a lot. So let's just go through a little bit of this article and we'll come back to it. Let's just talk a little bit as we start about lineage. The fear people have, hold on, let me just make sure I go through something because I want to make sure. Well, no, we'll start here. We'll start right here. Because I want to go through something. Hold on one second, because I want to make sure we understand the different groups, because there are different groups. There are different groups. There are different ways to discriminate against people. I thought it was your own people. It be your own people. It always be your own people, because some of these things are larger. So they have, we always talked about Igbo, and they have the Alia, and they have a bunch of different groups. They have a bunch of different groups. And I'm trying to figure out, there was a great quote about which group was which group. But the Osu or Ohu are the slave descendants. Theirs are the slave descendants. And we have to talk about what happens to them. So let's just go here then. The Ohu, the slave descendants, and you have the other ones. The fear people have is before long, our children and children's children will be bastardized. Okoro Ijoma, a professor of Igbo history at the University of Nigeria, Nusuku, told me. It's about keeping lineage pure. We always talk about lineage. They're very interested in keeping lineage pure because what they believe goes hand in hand. What they believe goes hand in hand. See, this is the new piece. The descendants of slaves in Nigeria fight for equality. That's a quote I just read from you. What they believe goes hand in hand with something else I've told. Now stay with it. We're going to move fast. You got to stick with me. You remember the Brahmin in India. We went from Nigeria to Brahmin. We're going to come right back to Nigeria, but let's wait. They talk about how the slaves were a pollutant. They were pollution. That's the same thing that the Indians say in terms of the people who are bottom caste. The Brahmin up top, that's Kamala. Hey, lotus flower. So at the bottom, though, are people who are considered pollutants. The Nigerian kind of caste system, and that's what is the caste system, just like the Indian Brahmin system is a caste system. It's the same thing. It's just made different. But they both believe that their slave people are pollutants. Like, you can't touch me. Like, that's what it was. That's what it is, because you can't tell me that's what it was, because that's still a part of it. So that's why we're here talking about the descendants of slaves in Nigeria fighting for their own equality in their own country. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Sounds familiar to me. Now let me talk to you about how important lineage is in terms of these groups. It says, before marriage takes place, Igbo families embark on Iju Ajuju as asking questions during which they send. During which they send emissaries to investigate whether the families are related or whether one has a history of mental illness that would jeopardize the lineage. Ogadimna Dinma was one of more than 20 children in her family's home, and she saw some of her siblings' marriage prospects ruined because of their caste. That's when I became conscious of Osu, she said. In 1970, she avoided this fate by marrying a successful businessman who is also Osu. Understand, people, what we're talking about. We're talking about people who are deciding, like, this is a caste. This is a caste system. We own slaves. Nigerians own their own slaves. Now, hold on. Here's my thing. This woman wrote this article a year ago and then followed up. She wrote an article about her grandfather, her great-grandfather, the slave trader, the very proud slave trader, if you read the article. If you read the first article, read that her great-grandfather was very slave. No shame. Very, very proud. No shame at all. He was proud of having sold them slaves. He didn't have no sympathy for you or me or anybody with us. He just tied them up to a tree. Understand that. Then followed up with this article. This is the Nigerian telling us this is what you need to know. What's wrong with you, ADOS? ADOS, are you crazy? Let me tell you something. If you want to, let's say something. Let's say we have, before I get to the rest, I'm going to just ask a question and you can ask it as we go along. Let's say we have some type of shared, let's say we have a sister group because of our shared background. We have a shared background. Wouldn't that be the descendants of slaves in Nigeria? Just a hypothetical, I'm just saying. Isn't that more than enough reason to ask who you? I'm not being xenophobic. I'm not asking whether or not you're Nigerian. I'm asking, are you Osu? Are you Osu? Because we more down with the Osu than the people who enslaved the Osu. Who you? Before you try to use this country to come in and just be a part of it and use me to access whiteness, who do I have more in common with? The descendant of the slave over there or the descendant of the slave holder? Tell me who you are. Show me who you are. And let's just go to the next thing. This is a story. Her father bought, now we're talking about a young lady. Let me give you the backdrop. She's trying to figure out, I don't know why this woman who comes and she's a friend of the family, why she's always so deferential. Well, then she finds out why. She talks to her mother and she finds out why. Her father bought Auntie Maria's family, and so bought the father and daughter, are Ohu. Naduagwu told me she learned that her family had owned slaves for generations. In the early 20th century, her paternal great-great-grandfather had murdered his most prosperous slave, and her children, fearing they would outshine his children and someday take over leadership of the family. The freeborn people always discussed them behind their backs and referred to them as bushmeat. Maduagwu said. Her mother warned her that she was not allowed to date or marry because it was forbidden. Who does that sound like? Tell me that don't sound like white and black in this country. You tell me. I'm asking a very simple question. I'm asking a very simple question. Who does that sound like? Now, let me tell you something. When you say, well, Yvette, we're still the same. I don't understand. We're still black. No. That slave money is still money, baby. This is in LA, I believe. U.S. black 200. African black 60,000. We're talking about the value of assets held by white and non-white households. U.S. black, white 110,000. U.S. black 200. African black 60,000. The flesh trade pays big money. That's the main African group in LA. I'm not picking on anybody. This is the main. This is an LA chart about LA money, and this is who benefits in LA. This is the numbers. So tell me in LA, what tribe are you a part of? You don't got to answer. I already know. Bush, you call. Hey, I think the Osu, my people, you don't call them bush meat. I should fight you over the Osu. I mean, we're our own specific tribe, but I'm talking about who would I have most in. I sometimes think about it like who would I have most in common with in terms of having a shared understanding of what my people have gone through here. And if you going through that, I have that with you. But see what we have, and I didn't know it either, fam. I done so much for everybody. Especially I went to school with everybody. I listen. When you know better, you do better. Right? Nigerians are the main African group in Los Angeles. And let me just say, I can't do math off the top of my head this quick, but how many times do you have to go from 60,000 is what times 200? Like, like if I say 2 and 1, 2 is double 1. What is that? How many more times is that? We've been here 400 years. How many more times is that? Can somebody tell me? Do the math. I don't have a calculator right here. How many more times is that? Let me know. And we're at, it's the same thing even when you think about our kids and when you think about their kids. The situation in Ogutu is so bad. The children in primary school know and talk about who is Ohu and who is not, he said. Can you imagine that even a child as young as 5 years old and call me Ohu? It doesn't sound like getting called an N-word somewhere, because that's what happens when you're a descendant of a slave. That's what happens. You've created a caste. You've created a caste just like the caste in India. It is a caste. That's what you've done. I don't understand how we don't understand that we're not a part. Listen, we're not a part of any elite group. If you're an elite group, we're not there. We're bottom caste. And everybody else understands that until they get here and they try to almost like put a little plug into what we have and say, oh no, we all good. And it's not just one group of people. Everybody does it. This is just something that specifically has been gifted to us through the New Yorker. That's all that is. So that we understand it. Half of the Nigerians in LA may be in the top 20% of Black American wealth in the U.S. You have eclipsed us. We've been here 400 years and we built this country. What does that tell you? We have to start redefining solidarity and redefining group and tribe. That's the only way we find our way home. That's the only way we find our way out of this maze. Because when I go back, I brought up that initial thing between the Chinese ambassador and what a name for a very Susan Rice for a very specific reason. I brought it up for a very specific reason, is because we're not privy to the global games and recasting of people as people that they are not. The duplicity and dishonesty, we are not a part of it. We're here and we're living our lives. And so we have made solidarity through melanin, and we are living the consequence of that in our own politics. And now is the time to fix it. Now is the time to fix it. I just showed you right here. And we talked about it right here. Half of the Nigerians in LA may be in the top 20% of Black American wealth in the U.S. Now, I want to juxtapose that. Here is where the overwhelming majority of ADOS are. Bottom 50% of Black households worth less than $1. You cannot do it. Listen, we're less. How are you worth less than people who just got here? Unless we're going to talk about how they were in the flesh. Unless we're going to talk about the cost and the benefit of the flesh trade. How are we worth? Because we are the descendants of slaves, just like the Osu. That's who we are, and that's what we're living, and that's the consequence of it. Listen, it says in the 19th century, this is from the New Yorker article. In the 19th century, the abolition of slavery in the West led to a glut. I think I have it here. Hold on one second. I think I have it here. I do, but I do what I'm working. In the 19th century, let me just read it. The abolition of slavery in the West led to a glut of slaves in the Igbo markets, causing the number of Ohu and Osu to skyrocket. These families, which were really rich, competed with one another in the number of slaves each killed for its dead. So because there was a glut in a market, they started murdering people. Did you hear that? Here it is. Just so you can see for yourself. In the 19th century, the abolition of slavery in the West inadvertently led to a glut in Igbo markets, causing the Ohu and Osu to skyrocket. These families, which were really rich, competed with one another in the number of slaves each killed for its dead or used to placate the gods. If these weren't brown people, you would see how savage that was. But because they look like you, somehow you can't see that? Is that what you're telling me? Is that what you're saying to me? How do you not see that? Let me tell you something, people. The flesh trade was prosperous. It just wasn't prosperous. There are all kinds of people who did it. It wasn't just prosperous for white people in America. It was prosperous for those for the Igbo against the Osu as well. You can't compete against that. You can't compete against a slave trader who came here or descendants of a slave trader who came in and said, hey, guess what? I'm brown. I don't care whether it's Lotus Flower or somebody else. You can't compete, I mean in terms of like, these are slave traders, but you can't compete against somebody who comes from the highest of caste too. You can't, and you shouldn't be forced to compete. See, what they've done is make black means more than, what they've done is make black mean more than black. Now, I'll admit Kamala's black and everybody else, but the thing that America has done is so insidious. They've really kind of made it mean something else, right? They've tried to make it mean something else. It means when we hear it, it doesn't just mean what we hear. It doesn't just mean African lineage, which is what it is. It means when it hits our ears, though, it means oppression. So if you tell us that you're black like us, it hits our ears in a certain way. We're a bottom caste. It hits us like, oh, you're oppressed like me. Come here, take my hand. That's what we hear because of what we've been through. We hear our struggle. We don't know enough to back up. No. Who are you? Because let me show you something else really quickly. I want to show you something else really, really quickly. Because what happens is, and I don't even know how we got here, and I don't even know how we stay here, but what we find out is that there were a lot of castes in a lot of different countries. It wasn't just like one country. So we sit and we kind of think like, well, it was just everybody else was just no black, and it was colonialism. No. See, this is what I was telling you a second ago. In its spiritual aspect, the plight of the Osu is similar to the Dalitas in India or the Burkuman in Japan, whose ancestors are believed to have done polluting work, or butchers or tanners, and who therefore thought to be impure. With Christianization, the conscious aspect of this belief dissipated, but not without leaving traces. The fear people have is, before long, our children's children will be bastardized. Okoro Ijoma, a professor of Igbo history at the University of Nigeria, Nsukku, told me. See, this is the thing. What we have to understand is, this is why, unlike in Cobra, we're not Pan-Africanists. We understand that there are villains and there are people who have been maligned and oppressed on both sides of this. So we understand that being Pan-Africanist is moronic. Because how do you say that to an Osu person who has been maligned by an Igbo person that we're all the same? They know different, and we should know different. The problem is that we have not been doing our research to understand that we're different than other groups. That's part of the problem. Let me see if I see one other thing, because I want to bring it up. These people have been playing. And I'm not saying this to oh, Yvette, you're just always trying to go in on, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying this to go in on anybody. I'm just saying this to say the truth. It's not about going in on anybody. So let me just bring this up really quick. This is not, there is no brown. There's only history. There's only lineage. There's a 60-page caste discrimination, a global concern focused on Dalits, or so-called untouchables of South Asia, including Nepal, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, and Pakistan, as well as the Buraka, I don't know, man, of Japan, the Osu of Nigeria, and certain groups in Senegal, Mauritania, who also suffered caste-based discrimination. The prominence of caste among South Asian diaspora communities is revealed. Listen, there is no commonality. There is no commonality amongst just brown people. You have to do the specific research about whichever group and whichever people. That is our responsibility. And what people have been allowed to do is just come in off culture. So they can pull a little Obama and learn our culture. They go to Reverend Jeremiah Wright's church. Wonderful church. Love black liberation theology. I do. But he went there for a different reason. He went there to kind of learn. I'm going to give a dap. I'm going to give a pound. What's up, my man? How you doing? How you feel? Like, that's what he went there for. And so people get to come in here and like slide into our tribe. They don't do what the Nigerians do that we talked about, which is get together in a group and start asking questions. Okay, what's going on with your family? Who are your family? Who are your people? They that. Oh, no. Like, we don't even say, what would happen? I'm not encouraging any kind of discriminatory behavior. But what would happen if we said, well, I don't really deal with people who haven't been here at least 200 years. If your people ain't been here 200 years, I'm talking about if your people haven't been involved in social justice, what have your family done to pay due to what we've been through? What have your people done to pay tribute to the ADOS and what we've been through, black people? We don't have any kind of guidelines or whatever. We don't have none. That's a problem. We let anybody play our roles. Well, you know, that's her right. She's brown like us. Cha. No, you was in London. We never even flown abroad. Understand that ADOS is not just like, being ADOS, being us is not just something that you learn through books. It's a lived experience. And we need you to be able to bring that lived experience and all the pain that comes with it with your role. I don't think you're a good enough actress or actor for that. And that's fine. Go do something else. Because this is the life that we live. This is who we are. We haven't even had a chance to be who we are fully in this country. We have been fighting for full citizenship all this time and ain't got it. So what right do you have to come in and snatch it? Who would do that? What kind of person would do that? What kind of person would tell me anyway, this isn't your country, this is a transient country? You have to think of the motive behind the person who would say that. Who would say that? Who would? You don't stop diving on. Who would say that? I'm just asking. These are questions that I just asked. These are questions that like we have to ask and we have to answer amongst each other. We are our own tribe. Let me pull up one other thing and then people say, oh my God, no, they had colonialism and we had slavery. It's the same thing. No, actually, it looks to me a little bit like the Brits ended your slavery. The British formally abolished slavery in Nigeria in the early 20th century and finally eradicated it in the late 1940s. That's late. But the descendants of slaves who are called Ohu and Osu retain the stigma of their ancestors. They are forbidden from speaking during community meetings and are not allowed to intermarry with the freedom. In Ogutu, they can't take traditional titles such as Agbuagu, which is conferred upon the most accomplished men, and they can't join or y'all playing with me now. Oriri Nzeri. Nzeri, that sounded Spanish. Important social organization. Okay? Descendants of slaves. We are the descendants of slaves, and those Osu people are too. And they won't let them. It sounds a lot like they treat us like we can treat it a lot like we can treat it a lot like, you know, we can treat it a lot like how white people treat us. That's how the Osu are getting treated over there. And let me tell you something. I want to tell you something. I want to be very clear on this. And I want to be very clear. I'm not being discriminated against anybody. Everybody deserves to be whoever they want to be. Whoever you want to be in life, you deserve to be. But you don't get to represent me and be that. You don't get to be two people. You don't get to clown me. So if this is who you are, Cynthia Erivo, you don't get to play Harriet Tubman. This is your Nigerian flag. I understand it and I respect you. You go ahead. But you don't get to be everything. You say I'm Nigerian, baby girl, go be that. But I need the person who's going to play Harriet to understand the pain. Our people haven't even got to pay Harriet. That is she is ours. Can we have anything? No. I'm not saying you can't do that, but why can't you listen? I'm sure in Nigeria there are powerful characters. Powerful people who fought colonialism, did all kinds of other things. I'm just saying that, like, given that you were in London and when you were there, maybe you're not part of our tribe. Now that's not anything against you. By all speed, do your thing. But I think there's a thing that people talk about all the time, talks about brain drain coming from Nigeria and other countries because the people who are the brightest and most talented don't stay and fight. Maybe it's time to stay and fight. Maybe that's what you do, because we fought for a lot of stuff and we're not getting anything. And see, if you were a descendant of a slave owner and you want to come here and play a slave, that's going to be another problem for you. You can't, I still don't, my tribe is my tribe, but I need to see that you also. Before we start having a conversation about blackness and burden and oppression, are you also? I need to know. Are you a member of a slave-owning Nigerian group coming over here trying to play a slave on the come up? These are things that we need to know. Where's the paperwork? I'm just asking the questions because I know that my people are right down here on this bottom right here, and I know that that's when the coroner, not the coroner, you already dead, Lord. When you in the emergency room and it's just you flatlining, that's my people right there. That bottom line, that's my people. Let me bring this up. So that's my people right there. So I got to protect that burgundy line right there, this flat line. That's what I got to protect. So I don't know what you're doing, and I don't know how you're doing it, but that's your business. But that's not my business. I'm trying to protect this group. And then even when you grow to how they're trying to make amends in Nigeria, you get to this line right here. They propose, for example, that Ohu, I see it pronounced Ohu, I don't know, but maybe I'll go over there and talk to y'all. That Ohu pay a token sum to the families that bought their ancestors to symbolically buy back their freedom. There is a grim precedent for such a payment. In 1833, when slavery was abolished in the Crown, when slavery was abolished in the British colonies, the Crown paid the equivalent of more than 16 billion pounds to former slave holders as reparation for their lost property. I'll tell you where else it came from. Right here. Right here. This is New York Times. Slave owners got their reparations. So they're trying to get, so the Igbo are trying to get reparations, are saying, well, we have to have money exchange. You have to pay us back as part of our culture. What kind of raggedy culture you got? But it already happened to ADOS. All of this sounds familiar, but you sound like white slave owners. You don't sound like black solidarity people. You sound like white slave owners. So tell me again in Cobra how it makes sense. How does it make sense for somebody who is a descendant of somebody who sold slaves to come here and get reparations with me? Make it make sense in Cobra. You say we all oppressed the same in Cobra. Make it make sense. I'm just trying to make it. I don't understand it. I want somebody to make it make sense for me. How are we all the same? See, when I say global gamesmanship, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the stuff that we believe is real is only been real for us. It isn't real for the world. The world knows that we've been gamed. The world knows that we're looking for something. The world knows that we're a lost tribe. And the world knows that they're taking advantage of it. The world knows that we can't compete against somebody who schooled in London. We never schooled in London. We never did that. We never had that. We never came from where you came from. We never came from that survival kind of place. We never did that. We're not you and you're not us. And I want to thank the writer Adichie, because she really brought it home as well. She talked about, still becoming at home in Lagos with Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and she talked about her life. And I know that those of us who are ADOS, we tend to idealize, and we think it's gonna be Wakanda, and everybody's wearing dashikis, and everybody black loves each other, and it's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. But she was very honest in what she wrote about her life, and I appreciate honesty. So I appreciate it. And it wasn't what most of you all think, and I said a bit about it in my Twitter. I said, one of the most interesting aspects was the differentiation between African cities. She said, you assume you will be cheated. And what matters is that you avert that and will not be taken in by it. You assume you will be cheated. And I've known enough Nigerians to know that's the truth. Now understand something. If she's saying this, I want you to understand something for me. If she's saying this about her home, about how Nigerians treat other Nigerians, how do you think to have any solidarity within group? You don't treat your other group good. You don't treat the members of your society, you don't treat other Nigerians good. How am I supposed to expect brotherhood? We don't have brotherhood between your brothers over there. And it's not just them. Nobody really does. Everybody has their own little tribes going on. We're the only ones who just so stupid. We slow enough to just be like, no, you're right. We all got to stick together. Nobody does that. It's not happening. I don't know what we're always talking about, but it's not happening amongst other groups. So we always talking about, oh, well, we got to do. Where? What does that happen? Let me go to the second one, and then we'll go to the phones. Lagosians will speak of this with something of close to pride, as though their survival is a testament to their fortitude, because Lagos is Lagos. It does not have the tame amiability of Accra in terms of Ghana. It is not like Nairobi, where flowers are sold in traffic. Now, I want to say something that's about very interesting, which is so important. What she's saying is that like different African cities are different. Accra is not Nairobi, is not Nigeria. Everybody's different. Why do we walk around with this oneness about Africa? No, they might sit your daughter in Lagos. They might snatch your cookies. And they might give you a smiling face and wonderful teeth and be wonderful tourist town in Nairobi. I don't know. All I know is that when we're dealing with these slave traders that we know about, we got to be very, 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 very specific in terms of what they did and what they gained. And this is the kicker for me. It says, in some ways, it is even worse than the black-white divide in America, he told me. We speak the same language, eat the same food. There is no facial or cultural difference. But this is happening. Perhaps the most important difference is that though abolition in the West was preceded by centuries of activism that slowly and imperfectly changed popular attitudes about abolition in southeastern Nigeria, southeastern Nigeria was accomplished by colonial fiat. And only after the British no longer had an economic stake in the trade, it therefore seemed to many to be as arbitrary and self-serving as when the British pushed the Igbo in the 19th century to abandon subsistence farming, cash crops such as palm oil. The institution of slavery ended, but the underlying prejudices remained. And there's somebody in here talks about having a slave. Like she talks about, I just read to you about this, having slaves in the 19th century and killing them all. 19th century, you still had slaves? That's this one. How? How? That's the bushmeat one. Let me tell you something, fam. Let's just break this down. Let's just break this down. To come from a caste is the opposite of solidarity. You can't tell me you come from top caste and then come in here and want to have solidarity with me. Now, I'm not saying we can't build solidarity. We can build some kind of solidarity out of shared beliefs and ideology and what we want to see. But you're not my tribe. Everybody else understands that. Those Igbo people and those also, everybody understands who their tribe is. And we're having a hard time. Now, I'm not trying to hold you accountable. I understand I had a hard time too. I haven't always been here, but I've been accountable for my mistakes. I understand, and I evolved out of that. You got to evolve too. You got to move out of that too. We can't be here like this. Not understand that we're in this together and we have no friends. We have no natural allies. And if we do, we have to build it. If you want to build it with us, whoever, we have to intentionally build it. You know, I talked about Lovey a long time ago. You know, awesomely Lovey or whatever. She was coming here, and the reason I talked about it was initially I thought she was ADOS. I was cool with Lovey. I was like, oh, Lovey, that sounds like maybe that's somebody that's named Lavisha. And like that's a homegirl. And she used a cartoon instead of her real face. And I thought she was one of her. I thought she was ADOS. And then I find out she wasn't. And then I see something on her Twitter talking about she had a maid and a driver. And I realized you wasn't one of us. And then I realized you played us. And I realized you cloaked yourself in us to get to the top of here and be a satirist or weird wizard, humor lady, or whatever you do. I don't know. I don't care. The point is, family, once you kind of realize who your tribe is and this is your group, you kind of come outside of yourself. I'm not saying we can't have allies. We have Ghanaian Goddess. Shout out to you. We have other people. But I'm saying you have to understand, first of all, before you can ally, you have to understand this is my tribe. Anybody who had a maiden driver in this country, we were the maiden driver. My mother was maid. We have a lot of drivers. We were the maiden drivers. I don't have a natural allyship with you. What you doing? But why you didn't tell me who you was and where you came from? Why you came in here and just made up something, put a cartoon of yourself, threw it up and put it up like that, and you said all this negative stuff about us all the time? Who you think you playing? You played us. What I'm telling everybody, though, is that those days are over. Those days are coming over here and cutting your hair real short. If you're a man, I see that's what y'all do, too. You cut your hair real short, especially some of you have wavy hair. You cut it off. Hey, all those days of playing ADOS are over. And that's what we need to tell everybody. All those days of you making us feel the fool and play the fool, we're done with that. We got to have some real terms of agreement. We got to have some real terms of allyship. That's what we're doing. And that's why I started out with Susan Rice and her going back and forth with the man. The man told the truth. We are a contagion of wealth. And what have you, Susan, done to stop that? It's not a racist thing to tell the truth. about what we are and what we become? Who's going to help us out of this hole? That's my first question in terms of what you are in terms of allyship. Who is going to help us outside of this hole? How are you going to help dig me out? If you ain't got a shovel, I got no use for you. And if you are proud, if you go back to your home and you treat Osu and Ohu the same way we get treated, I have no use for you either. There are a lot of different ways to be a slave master, and you don't talk about it being just based off what your melanin is. Obviously, you didn't have any solidarity. Obviously, Pan-Africanism didn't mean nothing. There was no Pan-Africanism when you enslaved another African as your own or sold them or nothing. Pan-Africanism meant nothing to you. It was not even a thing then. And we are done as a group. When I'm telling you, and the ADOS is done being played. We can have solidarity with anybody, but just because we have solidarity with you doesn't mean you're a part of our tribe. And we are done with that, and I'm telling you that today. So, fam, I'm going to take a quick breath, take a quick break, come back, we'll have the conversation. People playing games. are back, fam, and I want to say before I get started, I want to thank all the people in the chat. I want to thank all the people in the chat calling us Akata because, the funniest thing is sometimes you get yourself in a fight and you don't realize that, like, you outnumbered before, like, you throw the first punch and then you throw the first punch and then, like, it's on. So I just want to, you all did, like, careful. Watch yourself. Watch yourself. Watch yourself. Be very careful. Still outnumbered, boo-boo. Anyway, I am going to 323. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hello, my name is Stanley. I'm calling from Los Angeles.
What's going on, Stanley?
Yeah, I spent quite a bit of time in West Africa. I'm familiar with the Osu. Now, you're thinking about the Igbo. Now, that's within their tribe, this schism they have. But I was living in West Africa in Accra during the, I think there was a civil war in Liberia. Do you know that I remember I was walking down the street and somebody just stopped me and wanted to sell me a child.
Wait a minute, a real baby?
Oh yeah, a child. I took the child. I started fighting this dude because I just flipped. Knowing my history coming out of Alabama, I just flipped on it. Mm-hmm. That's very prevalent. What that flesh trade in the western part of Africa, because it's the kind of gut-wrenching poverty that you would see. Now the thing is, I'm a baby boomer. Okay. Now I was here with the first generation of Nigerians that came here. Now most of these were generals, people like Abacha's children. These were generals. Now you're talking about some very arrogant, some very pompous people. So that's what we got, and I think that kind of muddied the water. But as far as if you do your research, you'll find out that even in say for instance Ghana, let's see, I can't think of the name of the tribe right now, but they have a long history of the slave trade, and they have always said that the Ashanti, that's the name of the tribe. The Ashanti had that similar history where they said they was a free state. They were never colonized. They were never enslaved. But they're notoriously famous for slave hunting and having a caste system. That caste system it's a reward and punishment. And trust me, they use the Osu mostly for money rituals. I mean, seriously, ask any Nigerian about money rituals, and they use, and the part of what we call black magic, or what they call juju, juju, for what they call money rituals. Now, I was asking somebody, I said, why would you use somebody for money rituals to get Lara? You would think you would be getting pounds. I mean, some of the stuff, like, and I'm going to say this and shit. I had a friend of mine, very intelligent cat. We've been friends since the 70s. He was Nigerian. He was a brilliant brother. He went back to Nigeria. He was, his family was, his father and his family were, they were in the military, high up in the military. He was the firstborn. That's considered major. He was the firstborn. To this day, they cannot tell me. And he was supposed to, his parents passed. He was supposed to, as they say, in West Africa, he was no more. He was supposed to go over there, and they were, and everything was supposed to be, they leave everything to the firstborn. He got off the plane. I talked to him. He was getting up, and I never heard from him again. And when I went there, I haven't heard from him. Now, he got 2 children here by ADOs, but he had did pretty well while he was here. But the children had fared that well, because they have no answer. They just know that he never made it to his home. I think they did him before he can get out of the airport there. But they never heard of him since, and that's been about 10 years ago. Probably longer than that.
All right.
So it gets pretty brutal, but the thing about West Africans, they're either extremely good or they're extremely evil. All right. I don't want to take up too much of you guys' time.
All right, fam. I appreciate it.
Right.
I appreciate it.
All right, bye.
Oh, Lord have mercy. I'm going to 404 now. 404. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Good evening, Yvette. Is
Hey.
your family?
Hey, what's going on?
Well, Yvette, I'm gonna be like Mr. Otis tonight. Yvette, Yvette. Yvette, okay. I've been dealing with this issue, well, not an issue. Okay, let me go back. I have family who is from the continent, from the country in which we are discussing today. And let me just say that the emperor has no clothes in about 85% of the cases in which you are speaking of. Vanity is off the chain, just out of this world. The level of vanity that particular group of people have, it would astound you.
Well, you know, but let me say this. Since you talked about vanity, and I'm gonna keep your thought. I'm gonna come right back to it. It's funny that you brought up vanity, because I remember seeing how, y'all know that child Black China. She apparently went over somewhere to Africa. I don't know which country, to do some kind of skin lightening stuff. And it was funny to me because I remember way back when, and I talked about it when it happened, of a person who tried to pretend that they were some type of in solidarity with me, and then they called me a blue vein. Aha, caught you. Which means that you're a light-skinned ADOS woman. But you can't deal with me. Like, my light skin comes naturally through everything that happened in my family, okay? And most ADOS families, some of us lighter than others. But I've done my DNA on this show. But you can't deal with me as light-skinned black when I'm dealing with the plague of like skin lightening. Your people trying to look like me, homegirl. Like, how do you even, like, what are people going through? So when you talk about vanity, I have to talk about like this is so contradictory, even in terms, they be like, oh, you all are blue veins, but y'all got a skin lightening problem. Let's talk about it. But go on, fam. I'm sorry.
Well, you know what, Yvette. And in some cases, you would be too dark.
Oh, Lord.
In some cases, your skin color would be too dark, yes. And these people are literally killing themselves to be white. I mean, literally. It is the melanin in our skin that protects us from the sun. And you should see the cases. Just type in YouTube, do YouTube, Google, search, and you'll see it. And when I tell you that it's 1,000 times worse than what they're showing on YouTube, it will astound you. And the one thing that also just threw me off the chain is that slavery is still going on in that country.
Oh.
Those people are still being sold into slavery. Yes, ma'am.
I saw a lot of that in Libya. Did you see that? Libya. Didn't you all see some of that about going around about how they're selling Africans or whatever? But go on, fam. I'm sorry. I don't mean to keep interrupting. But what you're saying is interesting. I apologize.
See, it's not. See,
okay.
They have people within the country.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I said educate me. Go ahead.
They have people within the country who are enticing those young people who are trying to escape poverty into leaving their country. They scatter up money from their family to go. They actually paying these people to help them leave the country to find a better place. Only till when they reach Liberia through the Sahara Desert, and a lot of them die on the way, to find themselves being sold into slavery. Not just in Libya, but in Saudi Arabia, all across the Middle East. This is happening today. And the people who are doing it to them are their own people. Their own people. So when I tell you the emperor has no clothes, Yvette, I mean that. And like that gentleman said, some of them are very good, but some of them are damn evil. Excuse me, the French. They do sacrifice people. They do sacrifice people. They do. They sacrifice children. stating that they're going to, if they do it, then they could take their star, meaning their destiny, from them, joining it to them. Yes, ma'am, it's bad.
Mm.
And like I say, anybody can go online on YouTube and find it. Don't tell you.
See, you know what the difference is, though. You know, you're exactly right, but it's so different. Like, I don't know. I don't think ADOS understand how wonderful we are, right? Because I make fun of her calling me blue vein, but understand that Wesley Snipes is a sex symbol here. Understand that Angela Bassett is a sex symbol here. Understand that we it's like Nina Simone said, we go all the way from the lightest of the light skins to the darkest of the dark skin, and we love it, and we love all of ourselves. We don't get into this thing like we had our moment with that. Like we've done the colorism stuff. We've done the whole, you couldn't, if you Hattie McDaniel, you could only play a maid, and it had to be Lena Horne. Like, we've kind of come outside of that now, and we've come all the way forward into, like, I'm not saying colorism is still a thing in America, but I'm saying, like, we're pushing forward. We're pushing the bounds to where we understand we're everything. We're yellow, we're brown, we're black, we're ADOS, and we love all of us. That's the direction in which we're pulling, and we're pushing back against the paper bag nonsense and all that nonsense that came with it. We're pushing back against, like, what, you have to be a certain complexion to get into a HBCU? We are pushing so hard in the right direction. And my thing is, I wonder if some of you other folks in these other countries are pushing in the opposite direction. We're pushing forth where all of our black is beautiful, from light to the blackest of the black. All of it's beautiful. All of it's sexy. That's where we're pushing in the direction toward. We're not perfect yet, but we're getting there. And, like, you can't call us on that, especially in the belly of the beast in a majority white country where, like, slave masters rape slave women. We're pushing back, though. We're doing everything we can. If you haven't done that in the majority black country, you have no right to talk to us and call upon us and say the kind of things that you're saying about us. We are pushing, and we're understanding the beauty of our particular brown, yellow to black rainbow. That's what we're doing, and we're gonna do this together. Y'all can try to separate us all you want, but we know we're ADOS, and we're in this together. I'm gonna let you have the last word, fam.
Well, Yvette, I'm going to end it with this. Today, I listened to another podcast, and a couple of years ago, I listened to another, and basically what they were saying, basically the same thing. And it surprised me because I remember the first time that I heard what this particular person was saying today. And basically, it has a lot to do with being jealous. Mm. Jealous of ADOS. That's what that is. That's jealousy, pure and simple. Mm. It is. If you were to look at their entertainment, because I watched the movies. Some of them are bad, but then some of them are really good, and I can appreciate both. Like a bad soap opera sometimes. Mm. But if you watch it, you'll see how they've attached our culture, even in their movies, the way that they dress. And I've often been asked, I'm like, why aren't they wearing their native dress? They don't. Unless it's a very, very, very special occasion. But they want to talk like us, walk like us, use the terms that we use, everything. It is all over. And then the actors and actresses that I grew to love over the years, and I know them by face, and I can watch a movie, and I'm like, well, who is that? That person looks familiar, but they light skin. Yvette, they were bleaching their skin. And everybody in the world is saying, hey, this is going to kill you. This is going to kill you if you keep doing it. It's called the skin cancer. It won't kill you, but do they care? No.
Yeah, and it doesn't, like, and I say this as a light skinned person, it doesn't make you more attractive. It doesn't. We honestly have in this country like the opposite, where light skinned people and white people are trying to like kind of like, I need a little glow, I need a little tan. Even I'm a little bit red from doing what I mean. That's the opposite. Like, it's the opposite kind of thing in this country. Like, I really think we all need to come to terms with like how beautiful we are as a rainbow of ADOS people, and like how what was intended and how what was intended for a curse for us has become beautiful and could be very empowering if we walked into it. If we walked into it.
I was gonna say, you see what the ADOS sisters are doing? We're embracing our natural hair.
Yeah, yeah.
And I love that.
And it's because it's more beautiful.
You know,
Let me just say this.
You remember that?
And let me just say this. I don't have any criticism of an ADOS woman who is not wearing natural hair. Let me just say that too. I want to put that out there.
I'm not. Oh, I'm not.
I know you, fam. I know you're not. But I just want to make sure everybody understands. I just want to make sure you understand. Whether you wear your natural hair, which I think is beautiful, whether you wear synthetic hair, whether you straighten your hair, you are beautiful. Like, understand that. I just want everybody to know that and understand that there are no criticisms here, especially in a country where you get discriminated against too. If you wear your ADOS hair in your workplace, they will discriminate against you too. They will discriminate against you. They will say, oh, well, that's not for the workplace. But that's a whole other conversation.
Right, you're right about that. But, yeah, it all that glitters, Yvette, when it comes to that group of people,
yeah,
ain't gold.
Yeah.
Oh, not all of it. Just know that. It's not gold. Vanity, what was it? I'm going to say this and then I'm going to end the call.
Okay.
The last couple of lines in that movie, Devil's Advocate, where the character who played the devil said, vanity is my favorite sin. I have come to understand why it is that through watching that group of people. Okay? You have a blessed evening,
You
fam.
too.
I love you guys.
You too. Thank you, fam. I appreciate it. I don't think we understand. Like, as ADOS men and women, I don't care whether your hair is natural or not. I don't care whether it's synthetic. I don't care what you got on. I don't care whether it's trash. I don't know whether you're a man, whether you got locks, whether you got waves in your hair, whether you got the Caesar. I don't care. You're beautiful. And if ain't nobody told you today, let me tell you, you are a beautiful ADOS person. I don't care which kind of hairstyle you decide to rock. Let me just tell you that. People try to separate us based on not this caller. This caller was cool. This caller didn't try to separate us based on nothing. This caller was being real cool. She was cool. She wasn't trying to do that. But I want to make sure that you understand that. Just from your own personal perspective, I want to make sure that you understand regardless of what you rocking today, it don't really matter. I don't care what you rocking, cornrow, Caesar, synthetic hair, track, natural. You're beautiful. Way God intended you, whatever. Don't let nobody make you feel worse. Don't let nobody make you feel worse. And don't let nobody divide us. Well, it's them over there. Well, see, it's the ones over there. Well, see, it's the ones with the hair. And see, no. We all in this game together. Sorry. Nice try. Next time. Thank you, Carl. I appreciate you, though. 734. What's your name? Hold on. Wait a minute. It's a party. Turn down your background for me. Okay, what's going on, caller?
Hey, this is Stephen from Detroit.
What's going on? What's on your mind?
So I read this article, and I'm actually reading W.E.B. Du Bois, The World in Africa, too, so it's kind of like they kind of go hand in hand, understanding like slave trade and the impact Africa and Asia and all these non-European continents and countries had on like the Western world and Western development. But the first thing I wanted to kind of talk about is the caste system. And so like we think about caste systems like as a distant kind of thing that other countries do. And we don't really, when you talk about that a lot, we don't understand our place in the caste in America. But what we also don't understand is how that caste system affects immigration in a lot of the ways that you talked about tonight. So like in India, for example, because you were talking about skin bleaching, they still have like a preference for lighter skinned Indian people. And so dark skinned Indian people are considered like undesirable. And even like if you're in a lower caste, you can come to America like the guy in that article in the New Yorker. If you get a scholarship to go to school, or if you have a degree and you can come to America as an engineer, make $300,000 or something in Silicon Valley, go back to India, and then you're rich. You're rich, so you transcended your caste. The same way that lady, she said her father got a scholarship to go to London when she was 70 years old, and people still call her an Osu. And so it's something that we can't do as a people. We don't have another country we can go to where we can make money, where we can go to and try to get money to establish our families or to send back home or to bolster our group. We don't have that.
Yeah.
And so when we look at this dynamic, and that really ties into the immigration debate, when we look at this dynamic of, you know, we're all in solidarity because we're melanated and we all face the same oppression, that's not there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like even with this, where the news, Trump is trying to pass legislation to change asylum laws so where you can't seek asylum in the United States unless you've already been denied asylum in another safe country, which is Mexico, because a lot of the asylum seekers are being offered asylum in Mexico, but they're not taking it. They're turning down asylum in Mexico to come to America. And who wouldn't want free citizenship into America to, you know, jump that line? And so it's a lot of different stuff. But even as far as the caste in Nigeria specifically, I didn't really notice if I heard you say, but he mentioned 4 groups. So the Diala were the top. The Osu were members of the Igbo tribe who had become slaves either to pay a debt or to get out of going to jail or something. The Ohu were people from other tribes that were captured by the Igbos, and they were used as sacrifices. They were sometimes used as domestic servants. And then the last was Ume, and they were people who were given to like guard the temples and shrines. So people would give their child to a shrine to sacrifice in a way to a deity, and so they would spend the rest of their life cleaning up their shrine and like tending to the shrine of this deity. And so there's 4 dimensions to this. So when the guy was saying, you know, we look the same, there's no difference, he was saying, I'm an Igbo. So it's not even to say that I'm a different tribe of Nigerian person. I'm an Igbo person, and you treat me like a slave. I don't have any rights in the council to say anything. I don't have an opportunity to hold council office or any of these traditional titles that you give to people. I'm not even a different person. And so, like, I posted a thing on Twitter about what Pan-Africanism too. How come Pan-Africans aren't talking about this? Why has no one ever talked about this? And how do you think it's possible to achieve a one Africa when there's this type of division, even within a tribe? Because we always talk about how Africa is 54 or 52 countries. Yeah. And then we look and break it down, and even within countries, there is no unity. But then you take it to a tribal level, that there's this much disunity in a tribe of people who come from the same ancestral place, who speak the same language, have the same history. Your hope is therefore the continent of Africa to unify. You know, it's really like, it's like a immature, like simplistic idea that you can just make all these different black people on this continent who do not want unity and have not, because like in the paper they say that slave trade in Nigeria preceded slave trade from the West. So this is something that Europeans and wealthy Nigerian people decided to partner in together. This wasn't something that they were forced to do. This wasn't something they were unsure about. They were tricked, because a lot of people try to say, oh, well, they didn't know the slave trade was going to be this bad. They thought they were just going to be going away. There's no way that you could think that shipping your family or shipping people away to a place you people you had never seen before.
Or we have to ask the question, Carla, did they learn it from you? Did these white Europeans learn it from you? Had you already set it up? These are just the questions that I'm asking from reading this article. Had you already paved the way and they decided to tap into it? I'm just asking. So I'm going to let you finish up, Carl. I'm sorry.
That's what it seems like. Oh, okay. Well, and that was just, and like I said, from reading my book, my W.B. Du Bois book, breaking down the world in Africa, it really breaks down a lot of these types of interactions and looking at how important slave trade was to Western development. You're breaking down, not to get too off track, but how backwards Europe was in the 15th and 14th century and how advanced African and Asian civilizations were. For Europe to be able to take all those things from really traveling and a lot of what they took from Africa, we don't think about it in this way. We think of it as more of an evil, vile thing. But it really was just unbridled capitalism. They took the labor, they took people from Africa to bring to the New World to work the land. And that was how they got all their wealth. They had people building up your whole infrastructure. This is the reparations debate today. And he talks about this. Du Bois talks about this. There's a line in the book where he says there's a young woman in England, and she has a beautiful house, and her parents make a nice living, and she plays ivory keys at a piano, and she goes to a nice school, and she wants to go on vacation, whether she's just trying to decide whether to go on vacation in Switzerland or Italy. How can you convince her that her lifestyle is supported by the oppression, rape, murder, and torture of people all around the world, of black and brown people? Now, in the context of black and brown, he's talking about in Africa and, South America. But that's what we're talking about today. He says, who's going to pay for this? Somebody is wrong, right? Some people did this. Countries did this. But there's no one being held accountable. No one has to answer to this. And that's the question that we're asking today.
Let me tell you what I think happened, Carla. I think there's a reason why nobody had to answer for it. And I think this is when I talked about globalism and global, how we move on a global scale and gamesmanship. I think everybody decided. I think the powers that be. I think the powers that be decided. Let me let you go, cause I hear some backdrop. But I think the powers that be decided. Well, we just gonna say Pan-Africanism, hands off. So we're gonna make you the slave like everybody else, and it's gonna be all the same, right? And when you even look at Wakanda, how does a country like Wakanda exist? Even fictional without slavery. Are not we vibranium? When you look at the Benin and you look at the women who were those were the ones who were running around with the stuff. Like those were the slave catchers. Were we the stuff that was used to make them powerful and rich? We have to talk about the flesh trade, ladies and gentlemen. It's important. I'm going to my next call. I'm going to 702. 702, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Good evening, Yvette. This is, will you call me Charlie? I'm going with Charlie.
All right, Charlie. What's on your mind?
Well, I think it's very interesting what you guys are talking about tonight because it's something that I really experienced for the first time when I was in college. When I went to school, I'm a little older than you guys. I'm not quite a boomer. I'm around the edge of boomer and Gen X, and it was interesting to me to be in school at that time when you had quite a few Africans who were in college with me and university with me. And the thing that I noticed very clearly was the distinction between them and us, and the distinction amongst them, because they weren't all treating each other the same either. They had you could see the pecking order. You could see how some of them associated with each other and some did not. And when you had conversations with them, you understood why. That there was this huge gap in wealth. There were those who were wealthy who had come to America, and there were others who had benefactors, or they were there on scholarships. They'd gotten here some other way other than through familial wealth. Those who were here from familial wealth would make no bones about how wealthy they were and how connected they were. They would tell you about their lineage and this money. And like you said, at the time, I had no idea that I knew that it was strange to me that there was this kind of wealth accumulation among this group, this small group of students coming out of Africa, because at that time I'd only heard about African poverty. And as I dug deeper into it, I realized that the people who, and I'm just going to be honest about it, from everything I've seen, the people who were accumulating wealth, they were in cooperation with Western powers that were basically pillaging the land. And so you had to begin to question them, and they would always, they would avert. They would be very, very secretive about how that was actually going on. If they had construction companies, where did the wealth come from? If they were dealing in minerals, who were they working with? How are they getting the minerals out of the country? It was very interesting to see that. And the thing you talked about with them being in America, there was this one young boy. I'll never forget it, because he was, at that time, hip-hop and rap was really just starting to build up momentum. And he was sitting around, and he had, the whole thing, the whole clothes and the hat and all that. You would never even know that this guy was African. And I remember one of the teachers, who was a Pan-Africanist, was like, look, this is shameful that he's walking around like this, that he's from Africa, and he's celebrating this foolishness, right? And I remember him saying how he learned how to. We were all trying to, at that time, the cars to have were like BMWs and Mercedes. It was the idea that it was striverism. We were all going to graduate, and we were going to get our BMWs and our Mercedes, and we were going to get good jobs in American society. We didn't really understand, because that was still something that had worked for a generation before us. But this kid was saying he didn't see what was so special about a Mercedes, because he learned how to drive a Mercedes when he was 14 years old, because his father owned Mercedes and their construction company. And at the time, you had to sort of look at that like, what are you talking about? Because the ideal of the idea of your father owning a construction company and owning all of these vehicles, a fleet of Mercedes trucks and cars and all these huge construction projects, we had no idea that even existed. I mean, it was just like, what are you talking about? You know, and this other student, he was a grad student. He'd studied. He was in the graduate program for engineering, and he began his studies in Europe somewhere. I think it was in London. And he came there and he just walked through this program, and we were shocked because so few of us were graduating through the engineering programs and science programs. And here this guy was just walking through it like it was just, I mean, it was like walking through a freaking pond of water for this guy to walk through this program. The way he was treated differently by the professors as well. We were treated with disrespect. There was no doubt about that. Treated straight up disrespect, straight to your face. Teachers told me I did not belong there. They didn't come at him like that, because he was seen as being different. Part of it was his wealth. It was also his education. It was his status. I mean, he was still black, but he wasn't going to stay here. He was going back to Africa. So it was a whole different thing. So when they came here, they walked a different path. They walked a different way. They didn't have to deal with the same kind of obstacles because they had wealth and because they were seen as being different by the white structure. They weren't seen as a threat. They didn't, like you said, they owe us. They don't owe him anything. He's just there as a visitor. And so it's interesting for you to talk about this tonight in terms of our accepting ourselves as a separate people, as a unique people. And that's something that you have to do. That's something that everyone does. It's the one thing that has held us back forever, as we've always been into the ideal of assimilation. And assimilation, as Farrakhan and others have said, assimilation is death. You can't assimilate into people who do not respect you. It is an impossibility. You can't do it. First of all, they won't allow it to happen. And if
But you know what? The funniest thing is, Carla, every time we think of assimilation, we automatically think of assimilation into like white America. We never think about the other side. We always think of assimilation into other African people and cultures, no matter who they are. Even Asian is like, well, that's natural. We're people of color. And we never think about you don't know. Nobody else is looking at it the way we're looking at it. And that's a problem.
Yeah, correct. No one looks at it that way at all, because the ideal of assimilation is the ideal of giving up. The ideal of me assimilating into any other culture is a disrespect to it's a disrespect to my grandmother and my grandfather and great grandfather and all of my ancestors, because they did not have me. They did not bring me into being for me to disappear, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about me disappearing, my lineage disappearing into someone else's. That is a disrespect. It really is. You have to accept where you come from. As you said many, many times before, it would be insane. It would be blasphemous for me to ignore the fact I knew my grandparents. So I saw what they did. I saw both of my grandfather's homes that they built with their hands. I was told the stories of how they were able to survive, how my grandfather was a sharecropper, how he was a coal miner, how he had to, at one point, I guess they were paying the black people a nickel less an hour than the whites, and so he left. He left the coal mines and went to the farm to be subsistence farming because he knew he could do that, because he refused to be treated that way. This is a man. We're talking about somebody who was alive over 100 years ago. You know, so this is what is insulting to me when I hear people talk about things today, and I'm like, do you realize the type of strength and courage and power that the people had in this country that got me here, that got you there? You're not sitting there on that TV screen. You're not sitting there online right now because weak people gave birth to you. You're sitting there because strong people gave birth to you, and they had an ideal about what they wanted to accomplish on this planet. There's no other way for them to make it, because this is something that they wanted. They wanted you and I to have a real life in this country, and they gave blood for this country. They fought for this country. They worked this land. They are owed what this country has produced from their labor. And the fact that you're talking about, Pan-Africanness, I had the argument with Pan-African. Speaking of which, you guys have mentioned his name, Mr. Ray Wimbush. I know him well. I had discussions with him about this Pan-Africanism, and I was like, well, how does that work exactly? I had this discussion almost 25 years ago now. How does this work exactly? How can this come about? Because we had the discussion about different cultures, different nations in in Africa. How are we going to be Pan-Africanists and be this one people of the diaspora in Africa itself when we are separated by all of these different cultures, languages, beliefs, religions, and backgrounds, all this stuff? How are we going to come into this holistic thing to fight against anything when there is so much difference between us and when we have all these cross purposes? See, that's what people don't understand. If you're talking about Pan-Africanism, you're talking about something that's like reparations is, in my opinion, reparations is 200 is 1 to 200 years in work. I mean, seriously, before we can beat this down, probably it may take that long. Pan-Africanism is 1,000 years, maybe 2,000 years. I mean, because you have so much more to overcome if you're going to ever get there. So when we're talking about these things, we need to really look at what we're dealing with. And I think you guys are doing a great job. You and Tone are doing an incredible job. I am, as I said before, I'm really proud of you guys because these messages need to be taught this way, the way you're bringing them to people, because you're bringing it with clarity, you're bringing it with truth, and you're bringing it with knowledge and data that needs to be put out there because so many people are not looking at it. So much ADOS is so busy trying to survive, they can't really see, and I get that because I come from this. So I know I still have relatives that are struggling. I'm not struggling as much as them. I've crawled out of it. It's taken me decades to crawl up out of it to the point where I am, quote unquote, an average American. Despite
decades. Think about what you just said, fam. Decades to become American in the country that your ancestors built. And then if something goes wrong, since you got money, even though your ancestors don't, I mean your family don't have it, guess who they coming to? I'm sure you already know. That's the burden that we bear.
Know because at the present time, my plan for the next 2 decades or so is getting them stable. I have to be the one to do that because that money is not there. That money is not there. So I am the one that has to try to build a foundation for my kids.
So you have
and my siblings.
So hold on, you have to be government because that's what you're saying to me. I have to be government for my family.
That's the thing. I know that. That's why I said we have to move in that direction because there is no way for me to do it correctly. I can just make sure that they eat. All I can do is make sure that they eat.
Exactly.
And that's a sad situation because that's not where I'm supposed to be. That's not where they're supposed to be. I'm looking at, because once again, I go to work, I go to school with people. I've gone to school with people, white people. I've gone to work with them, and I see what the average is. So it's always interesting to me to see Tone put those numbers up there, and I'm like, well, what is everybody looking at? Because I've seen these numbers just in walking through the world, just in walking through the black neighborhoods of this country, from New York to Cleveland to Chicago to Houston. I've been in all these cities, out in Nevada, in Las Vegas, all over in LA.
Yeah.
And I've been to these places and I've seen the extreme poverty. I mean, I was just the other day, the job I have now, I do a lot of driving, and I was telling my children how there was this woman I saw who was literally living under a tree. She's living on a sofa under a tree. She's a homeless woman, and she's living on a sofa under a tree. And I told my kids, I said, this is the kind of poverty. This is something that you see in third world conditions. It's here. You can come right here to Las Vegas, Nevada. I'll show you exactly where it's at. I can take you to Cleveland, Ohio, and I'll show you where that's at, too. I'll take you to Houston and show you where that's at. I'll take you to Chicago and show you. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous that I have a litany, that we have a list of places in this country where we can go and we can see third world conditions where people don't have water, where people don't have adequate sewage, where people don't have enough to eat, where people are living at subsistence level in this rich, wealthy country where you have people that have billions and billions of dollars, individuals that have tens of billions of dollars, and yet and still you're telling me that people don't have adequate sewage? And this isn't because, and the thing is, no one's talking about this. No, are they still in Flint, Michigan? Have they done anything about the water situation in Flint, Michigan? Have they done anything about the sewer system in Alabama? Have they done anything about any of these crises? These are crises. I'll never forget them. I think NBC did a report on one. I think they were in Alabama. I think NBC went to Alabama. They sent the African correspondent, the international guy there, and he was walking around comparing it to like places he'd seen in other parts of the world, in third world countries. He was like, what is this? I've seen this in blah blah blah. I've seen this in Indonesia, but I've never seen this kind of thing in the first world. It's like, what are we talking about here when we're saying that this is? what are we talking about here when we think this is okay, that this is adequate, that this is acceptable for us to live like this? I mean, this is ridiculous. I look at these people, and the sad part is you're pulling you and Tone are pulling away. I love it. You're pulling away that veil. He talks about the decadent veil.
Yeah.
But pull away the other one too. The people, these politicians and stuff, who sit here and they have the nerve to be at the border talking about the conditions of the people who are coming into the country. But I can show you worse conditions in all those cities I just named. I can show you worse conditions in every single one of those cities. I can show you people living with rodents. I can show you people living without heat. I can show you people living without water. I can show you people living without power. I can show you all that. And it's like, and these aren't people who've ended up this way because of anything they've done.
Yeah,
they've
that's
ended up
the
this
point.
way
That's
because
important.
of, as we said before, redlining, systemic racism. I've been a victim of systemic. I have documents in my files for my kids because I just got to walk through this stuff. I just got to keep standing up and walking. But I have documents in my files so that I can show them. This is why I didn't get this position. This is why I didn't get that position. Some of these things were prosecuted by the Labor Department. And they would try to give you like $500, and they say, well, when the next job is available, we'll have an interview. You didn't give me a job, and it's been proven by the investigation that you should have given it to me. But what you're going to do is you're going to give me $500 and the ability to interview for another job. Well, how? I mean, and that didn't just happen to me, by the way. It happened to my sister as well.
Of course.
So this at a different job. At a different job. This is what I'm saying. So this was something that was so culturally entrenched and so acceptable. I'll never forget being in an interview with the guy. He was walking around the room as I was talking to him. I mean, he got up from his desk and literally was like, wiping down the desk, and I mean, it was just bizarre to watch it happen. I was just like, what is going on with this? But it was no different for me because I've been trained in university by the disdain they gave me there. It wasn't until I graduated that I had to, when I was getting ready to graduate, because they couldn't stop me. They beat me down as best they could. But I went there, and I'll never forget one of the guys who had just been the most detrimental and the most obstructive person to me. He put his hand out to shake my hand, and he said, well, if I had known who you were and what you were, he said, maybe I would have talked to you more. Because he had not succeeded in beating me down, he had to stand back and say, "Okay, well, I couldn't beat this one. One of you got through." And it's literally
Ain't that something?
like that.
One of you got through.
Yes, it is. It was sickening because a friend of mine became an engineer. He got through the engineering program, and I'll never forget it because he got through, and 2 other people got through. I think it was 3 other people got through that year. It was like a bumper crop. They had 3 people graduate from the engineering department that year. And do you know they did an entire analysis of the engineering department because they said that our standards aren't high enough or something like that. Because and they didn't say it was because 3 black people graduated or 4 black people graduated. They just said it was just something they were doing to maintain standards. They were worried about the standards slipping. And the thing was, some of these people had been there for years trying to get through. I think one kid had transferred in from another school. So it was an aberration that 4 black people came out that year. Usually it's 0.
Yeah.
So this was just the kind of thing that's endemic to this country. And the idea that these candidates, and anybody else for that matter, can sit there and say, oh, these things are just happening, and you know what, this is just something that you got to overcome. But for Biden and all the rest of them to say, this is something, we've been overcoming it. This is what overcoming this looks like. This is what it happens. This is what overcoming what you did to us looks like. We are people who are literally in the hospital, in the bed. We are sitting there. You're telling us to get over this incredible beating that we took, this nearly killing us, and we're still hanging on. And they're saying, well, you need to try a little harder to get up out of that bed. It's like, no, you need to come in here and help us.
I take another step, fam. I think they're telling us to stay in that bed because they know what happens if we stay in that bed. They know that death is imminent if you stay in that bed. Like, they know what happens if you stay in that bed, it's going to be all right. Just chill out. Just stay there for a minute. No. If you don't get the treatment that you need, staying in that bed is not going to work. I think people know. And see, I think that the problem that everybody's having now is that we've caught it. We've caught on. We know the game. And nobody knows how to deal with ADOS once we own to the game. Once we own to the game, nobody knows how to deal with us. But you're going to have to deal with us. You're going to have to deal with us. So I want to thank you, fam, for that story. I want to thank you, for your life story, basically, for what happened to you, so that people understand I'm not just talking. I'm not just putting out data or information. This is real life.
No, this is real. Tell those people to go visit. Tell those people to go visit their relatives. They don't have to listen to me or you.
Ooh.
Tell these people to go visit their relatives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, fam.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you for calling in. I appreciate it. I'm going to talk to you. Yeah, that's all you got to do. You can go do that. You can do whatever you want to do. You can figure it out. You can go visit your relatives. You can figure it out. It ain't hard. If you just stop being in denial for 2 seconds. I'm going to 832. 832, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Julius from Houston, Texas.
What's going on, Julius? What's on your mind?
Hey, doing all right. I just want to iterate. I talked to a young lady yesterday. I was at Starbucks, and she's Yoruba from Nigeria. And what you mentioned earlier, she mentioned about how a lot of Nigerians come over to the U.S. and attend HBCUs, and then basically discard our culture. And she told me that back in the 70s, her parents came to the U.S. Both of them have professional degrees from Texas Southern University. But then also in the same vein, she told me that her parents have discard for ADOS people, ADOS culture, and that a lot of the Yoruba tribes, that they talk down on black, ADOS people, that we're lazy, that we don't want to work. But I mean, how we're lazy when your parents went to a HBCU in the 70s, and most of all the professors were ADOS. And then she told me that her parents, say it again?
I said, yeah, back then. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, back then. And so I gave her the data. What Tone always talks about, this Smithsonian about, there were no black immigrants basically until 1965. So I gave her the data. I gave her the website, www.ados101.com. So I'm just, speaking knowledge to the sister, young sister. So she's studying to get into the Army to take the ASVAB test. And so, I was just talking to her about ADOS culture, and I was just telling her, about the ADOS movement. But then she just went totally conversation. I was just talking to her, then it just went totally left. And she was like, well, ADOS can be in a better situation if you guys stop using drugs and take school serious. So then I just had to, go ahead, Yvette.
No, I said we're drug addicts. Like the data actually shows you that, like, the between white and blacks, like is basically no difference between drug users. Like, even though we have more than enough reason to use, but the data shows you that you just talking white supremacist garbage at that point. You just repeating stuff that white racists have told you, and you think you're what? Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are talking to me that way? But go on, let me let you finish up, Carl. I'm sorry.
So I just had to give a brief history about, brief history. I just want to be short. I don't want to hold y'all too long. But I just gave a brief history about all the ADOS achievements in America, and that, our ancestors, paved the way for her, black immigrants to come over, and all the other immigrants to come over and to flourish in this country that we built. Our ancestors built with their sweat, blood, and tears. And then, I was just telling her about, I was just going way back about Christmas addicts. I was just going back Civil War, Jim Crow. I was going back to the American Revolution. So all the scientific inventions, people like Percy Julian. And she was like, I never learned none of this. And she was like, so you're telling me that ADOS people have done all this in America? And she was like, but I have never heard of this. And I was like, well, you need to, step out of the box and stop taking these talking points for these white supremacists.
You're right. I appreciate you giving her the business, caller. And I want to thank you for calling in. But yeah, you got to stop. Listen, I've always said this. This is something I've always said. I will take on white supremacists the same way I take on tools of white supremacists or white supremacy. White supremacists are one thing. We see Donald Trump saying whatever. White supremacists. We see Is Alex Jones gone crazy yet? I thought he went crazy or something. He always been crazy and racist, but I think he went cuckoo. But anyway, I will take on him the same way I will take on tools of white supremacy who use him to get ahead. There are white supremacy and there are people who are willful tool of white supremacists who kind of go along to get along with it. Say, well, you know, you really guys aren't doing a lot for yourselves. You know, I'm no Donald Trump, but I believe. No, you're a tool. You are a tool of white supremacists. And you're not just as bad as him, but you are a problem. And if you would steep yourself in education. We've talked about enough books on this show. There are enough people who've written books. I've always said that I'm not anti-immigration, but the people who immigrated into this country, I wish they would have a whole bookshelf, about 20 books at least, minimum, of ADOS contribution to this country, so that when you came here, you would respect us and give us our due. In terms of what needs to happen, you need to do that. You need to do that. So I'm going right now to 714. 714, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind? You there, 714? 714. Hello. Okay, I don't hear nothing. I'm going to 770. 770, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
What's up, Yvette? It's Devontae from Atlanta. How you doing?
Pretty good. How about you?
All is well. I'm the guy that got arrested for 6 months for breaking into my own house.
I remember you.
Foolishness with the police.
I remember that.
Yeah.
That's messed up.
I'm glad you're doing good, though.
Your own house.
It was.
Ain't right.
My own house, right? That was crazy. But that's how the system is. All you gotta do is accuse somebody and you'll get arrested.
Ain't that something?
But I just wanted to say, you're right when you say, you gotta be mindful. You gotta watch it. We outnumbered out here. Because it's true. I got 2 stories I want to tell. I'm gonna say it fast and try to make it concise. But I remember when I was finishing up my bachelor's degree, I already had my associate's degree from one college, and I went to Georgia State to get my second degree in public policy. And I just remember it was this one policy planning class where we all had to write this paper, and we all had to come up with different policy issues that we want to talk about. Okay. But one person in particular, policy issue was about the militarization of the police in America. Mm-hmm. And how they're using that military might to, completely, devastate black communities and whatnot. Okay. So I'm all for it. I'm loving it. But then one of the ladies, a black lady, she raised her hand just out of nowhere and decided to say, well, first of all, it's black people who are committing all the crimes. So, and I just want to make it be known that I'm Haitian. So I'm not like those black people, because those black people are the ones that's committing crimes. They're the ones doing all the drugs, stealing from people, killing each other, and I'm not them. That's them who want to do all that stuff. So then I'm sitting there looking at the lady like, oh, no, she's not. I know she ain't talking about my people. And I'm looking at the 5 other black people, because mind you, the public policy course at Georgia State is about 27 or 32 per classroom, and it's only like 5 or 6 black people in the class. So I'm looking at everybody else like, oh, I know we ain't about to stand for this. So another lady raised her hand was like, I'm thinking she's gonna be on my team. She gonna say something like, no. And that's right, because I'm Nigerian, and I'm tired of people always thinking that I'm black. I'm not even black. I'm Nigerian, and we don't do that stuff. That's them. So then everybody else, all the other black people who I'm thinking are black, ADOS, joined in the conversation too. It's like, yeah, I'm the Eritrean, or I'm such, we don't do that. And I'm just like, wait a minute. I'm looking at all these people in this classroom like, oh, I'm thinking y'all are me, but y'all claim somebody else. And then not only that, y'all are going to actively try to put my people down and try to say we're the ones that's committed all these crimes and whatnot.
But hold on, fam. Hold on, but you're here because of the people that you're putting down. Like if ADOS people hadn't fought for the rights that we have today, you wouldn't be able to be here. It would still be white mobs running around. You're here because of me, and then when you get in class, you shout me down. Like that's like, go ahead, fam. I'm gonna let you finish.
Yeah, but that was it. And I was like, you know what? I ain't gonna lie. I was kind of disappointed in myself back then.
I didn't know about ADOS back then, so I kind of just, shut it up. But I did email the teacher right after the class, and I just said, what happened in that classroom was just so disrespectful. And I refuse to be in a classroom where my race is being attacked like that, because that was racist, and that was wrong. And if you don't do something about it, I'm going to just take matters in my own hands. I ended up meeting with him before the class started, and he kind of came in the classroom with this, oh, this is just, crazy. And I can tell he really didn't want to even talk to me about it. But when I broke it down to him and said, now imagine if whoever you are, whatever race you are, and people that look just like you talked about your ethnicity, how did that make you feel? Is that not racist? Would you not be upset? So I eventually got it all worked out. He pulled the girl to the side and made a big announcement to everybody else, we are not going to put down nobody's race. That's not what we're going to do here.
But see, understand one thing, fam. Understand that this is lineage. See, that's the thing that we always confuse. I understand what you're saying. I understand what you did, and kudos to you. But understand that this is lineage. There's a lineage is wealth gap, not a racial wealth gap. This is lineage. And what they're telling you is that we don't have the same lineage as these people. So hire me, please, because I'm not a troublemaker like these people. Now, troublemaking is what got us here. The fact that MLK, Martin Luther King, took bullets and everybody else took bullets and got assassinated, that's what got us here. But you're telling them, listen, I understand that I'm going to take advantage of the troublemakers who were rebellious and got us here, but I'm not a troublemaker. I am a good actor. I will do what you say. So understand that we're talking about lineage, and everybody else understands the distinctions that we're making except us. That is the problem. We don't understand that we're a tribe that has to look out for ourselves.
That's right. Now check this out. Now, that was 2015. Now, last Tuesday, I'm trying to roll into this IT program because, with a bill that got passed, we was the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Part of their contractual obligation to even build that stadium on that side of town, the west side, was that they have to fund programs that benefit underprivileged, people in that community.
Okay.
So mind you, my family's from the west side, SWAT. My mom grew up there, my dad grew up there, my grandpa grew up there on my mama's side, my grandmama and my grandpa on my dad's side grew up in the ghettos, and my great-grandmama started her family in the ghettos over there on the west side of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So I'm going in for the interview. They asked me to describe myself, things, the typical interview questions.
Okay.
And, I said, I'm integrity, I operate with integrity, diligence, and I brought up that I'm ADOS. And then it was two black women. They looked at me like, ADOS, what's that? So, of course, I break it down. I said, it's a racial identity. We're American descendants of slaves, and we're pushing for reparations for all American descendants of slaves. And then it was like, well, what's the point of calling yourself ADOS when I'm black? And I said, because when you're pushing for something, you have to be specific because it's our specific justice claim. And we're pushing for it in politics, and I brought up Kamala Harris, because in politics, people, they can say that they're black, but they're not rooted in what it means to be black. So they're not going to be pushing for policies that benefit specifically for black people, ADOS people. So the lady, she stopped me and was like, I liked everything you were saying, but I just want to let you know, in this type of environment, we're not going to have, too many discussions like that because we have people that are black who are all different races. So I don't want you, coming in talking about ADOS and all that stuff and get an argument started because we always have to break up arguments when it comes to race stuff like that. And then she brought up that her friend who interviews people too, and she was like, well, if he would have heard that you're going up against Kamala Harris, this interview would have been done, you wouldn't even be in the program. So I sat there and just like, okay, I'm going to just suck it up. I didn't say
got
anything
to. I understand. You
got to
eat. But see, the thing is, let me just say this, fam. You have to do what you have to go to work. You have to do what you have to do to work. But see, the problem is that as a group, we haven't created the environment where this is just normal fare. Of course I'm ADOS. Yeah. What's up? We haven't, as a group, created the environment for you to go into that space and be open with two black people or whatever about who you are and it not be a problem. Because you need to be able to come outside of that room. See, it's too early and it's not enough, and too many people just aren't strong enough. See, you need to have enough people outside of that room who are politically active active and in your favor to where the people who you're talking to know, listen, ADOS is strong. Like he is what he is. This is what majority of black people are in this country. So you can't go up against it. The problem is we haven't put any wind behind the ADOS sails as a group. We have created what we created in terms of reparation the movement, but in terms of a group, we haven't put enough wind to where everybody knows. Oh, you can't mess with them. Like we can tell him he can't have this conversation necessarily at work, but you can't mess with this group. This group moved America, and that's who they are. Like that's just what it is. We haven't done that part. So I appreciate it, fam. I want to thank you for calling in. I'm gonna try to get to a couple more calls, but I appreciate it. But yeah, we haven't, like, to be able to walk into a room and say something, especially with a job, there has to be a lot of wind behind your sails. There has to be like a given. Like it has to be like a given. Like respect. Like if you're a Jewish person and you come from Holocaust survivors, you can say that. Like, I'm strong. I come from a group of Holocaust survivors. This is kind of built into me. Salute. And you get to say that and people understand. Oh yeah. And you understand it. Like you better not mess with these people. They learned a lot from that and they built a lot into that. We don't have that strength. We have a lot of our own people who are busy pushing back against us. And that really is a problem. I'm going to 205. 205, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Yes, I like to say, excuse me, I just got through chewing on this granola bar.
Well, good for you.
I like to say, first of all,
that's a good granola. That's healthy food. Good for you, brother.
Yeah, trying to eat what I can and try to get to a restaurant. But I like to say, first of all, rest in peace to Miss Sadie Rock Joseph.
Absolutely.
In Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Absolutely.
And I hope her family, I wish her family my condolences.
Now, hold on, Carl. Hold on, Carl. I asked this on Twitter, and I'll ask it to you too. Do we know anything more about that? I heard it was asphyxiation. Do we know any more about that? This was the founder of the African American History Museum, was found in the trunk of her car. I heard that it was asphyxiation, but I don't know. Do you know anything more about that?
No.
Okay.
I don't know nothing more. But it's obvious it's foul play. Whoever was such criminal, but it was foul play, you know.
Okay.
I hate that happening, you know. But no, man, I don't know anything more about that.
Okay. Everybody keep us updated. It's on my Twitter too. Keep us updated because I'm really interested to find out what happened here. Okay, but thank you. But keep going, fam. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you with that.
No, you fine. Now, what I'm going to say is not going to be popular. I already know that.
That's fine.
I already know what I'm going to say is not going to be popular at all.
That's fine.
But it's in the best interest of ADOS. Regardless of whether we like it or not, Africa Command, and China will bump heads over resources in the future in the continent of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're going to bump heads over resources regardless if we get our cut or not. We were sold by Africans to the United States. Just like the United States owes us reparations, we have a legitimate claim to some of the natural resources in the continent of Africa, in the nations that we were sold from, whether it be Ghana, Nigeria, etc. I think we should, this is my personal opinion, I think we should also pressure the government to make sure we get those natural resources, regardless if they have to step in, drone, military, how they did in Libya, however they do. You know, and me, I ain't gonna lie, I'm so real about it. I don't even care if it comes from the country we were sold from. It can come from Libya. I don't care how long I could. But I'll say that. And once we get our cut, we can help those who are in the lower caste over there. We can worry about the other ones later. And it's right. They do have a caste system. They also treat the Twa, the short people, the Bantu. They treat the Twa in a negative way, just like you were speaking about in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. But self-preservation comes first, and I think we have a legitimate right to the oil, the gold, and other resources over there, just like we have a legitimate right to the cotton, to the tobacco, to the sugar cane in the United States. And the chicken industry, since they use chicken to rationalize our genocide. And that's all I like to say, Yvette.
I know. I appreciate you. You threw the chickens in there.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
Yvette. I've been wanting to say this to you for months. What do you think about if a part of reparation? It's just my thought. You know, they say it's a pipe dream, but hey, many people think reparations is a pipe dream in itself.
Absolutely.
So I just say that. What do you think about a judicial form of reparations also? Like, we should have our own courts. We should have our own federal task force. You know, things like that to go after people who stepped on the rights of African.
But you know what?
They can investigate that.
You know what I'm more in favor of, though? I'm more in favor of, like, ADOS oversight. Like, in terms of, like, police, I'm more in favor of oversight boards, right? So, like, an oversight board to oversee, like, if this police shooting, like, we gotta go, if it's an ADOS person, okay, we're gonna have to run it to the ADOS oversight board, and we're gonna have to show them the video, and we're gonna have to deal with them, because there's a history in this country of y'all slaughtering us, so we gotta go to so I'm more in favor of an ADOS, like, I guess you would call it, depending on where it is, a kind of council of elders, a wise board, but it doesn't have to be elders, it doesn't have to be anything. It has to be like an ADOS oversight board, and it can be activists elected, and it can be cyclical, because I'm not in favor of anybody standing in position for any long amount of time. So that's kind of what I'm more in favor of, because I realize we're so American. I don't want to do anything that, like, makes us not American, but I realize this, we have to police America, because America hasn't allowed itself and shown itself to be able to police itself. So that's what we have to do. So thank you, Carl. I appreciate your call. I'm going to take the last call of the evening. We're at about the 2 hour mark now. I am going to 757. What's going on?
I see somebody got my signature. Yvette.
Yes, Batman signal Otis. What's up?
Well, I guess they called me in on the right time. I've been up and down about this, and I'm going to jump on something quick because I know you do some house cleaning. I'm coming in here with the insecticide and everything I need to tell some of these people out there. We've already been elevated to the national stage 2 months ago, 3 months ago. We were arguing about what kind of fictitious characters we were and whether or not we were dumb enough to have been rolled up in about $100,000 worth of Russian money. But I'm going to tell you, 14 days from now when I call into your show, if I still can get in, because I don't want to be like Alexander to get my stuff scrubbed.
He approved but let me just put it out there. He approved of getting scrubbed. He approved.
Pardon me?
No, I just want to put it out there. He approved of getting scrubbed.
Okay. I'm going to take your word for that, but I'm going to tell you something. My brother Mike Green was on Twitter.
I remember him.
And he came at Dr. Darity talking about what was good about the Douglas plan. But I would put a sidecar. Tone put out a full takedown on what's wrong with all the foolishness put out by these supposed to be clowns in the Democratic Party that are doing the same thing we saw from 2016 from the other party, which we both know is just their cousins that are a little bit harsher about what they think of us. If Tone put out a quick hit video with 16 minutes with a total breakdown to explain to you what's wrong with all that foolishness, I don't care if you're AKA, I don't care if you're in Roland's frat, I don't care if you claim to be intelligent and you don't need nobody to tell you something. Because you made a statement about a council of elders. If you ask an older person, someone around my age, that's not in the numbers of the boomers that don't get it, and they tell you it's not wise to be out here clowning the fool that's the egomaniac and feeding him fuel, you might want to go back to the original thing of putting ADOS information in his timeline, killing him with facts, and moving on. Because we're not out here to play footsie with a knucklehead that can't determine blackness from lineage. When you see that it is a fool, avoid him. I used the analogy before. I'm a little bit more mature than I have to step in a pile of dog poop on the sidewalk to make sure that it's dog poop. Walk around and keep moving. But I'm going to tell you something else. If you can't do the free stuff, The recurring training. I heard a couple people call in. One said it on Tone's show. One said it on yours. Tell me about calling in. I'm not calling in so you can get your fetish on, or you can demonize me and talk about one too many wine coolers and something like that. I'm a grown-ass man. I partake of libations when I choose.
Oh.
But I get insulted when I know you have the acumen to understand, to boost this program, to move reparations along. All you got to do is click like and click and retweet something or share something. But you know what really pisses me off? You don't have the acumen to write a comment of your own. The last thing you need to do is fall back on something as stupid as calling somebody a coon this or a coon that. You're playing into the hands of the people that are saying we're unhinged, unfocused, and we have no historical knowledge. And I know for a fact there are enough people like me that are much younger that are actually sharing the facts. But you skirt the facts and come up with a kill. And somebody got to determine what's so funny about this. There's nothing funny about this struggle for reparations.
No.
I don't care if you think I'm an old curmudgeon, but I'm going to tell you again. If you keep coming to my inbox with a whole lot of crap about what's wrong with me or somebody else, and I go to your timeline and all I see is foolishness, I'm that Negro. I will start screenshotting you and ask people what's wrong with you. Was it lead poison? Was it environmental impact? What is wrong with you that you don't understand the importance of this enough to share what the two people that have made this the topic of discussion all across this nation? You pretended they were ignoring us when they wouldn't talk about it. They poured shit on us from every direction. From the bots to the white media to now even the white media is trying to distort what reparations is about. And you ain't doing your part. It makes no sense. I don't care if you ever come to my channel, at least do it for the two people you claim you respect. When you see anything put out by these two people, there should be nobody, including the damn president, that beats what you 65,000 people claim you want to fight for. You can't, a brother said it before, if you roll out the bed and you ain't about the serious business of pushing reparations and talking respectfully about it, you need to get the hell off of the whole social media platform, because you create confusion and you're adding fuel for the people that say we're unhinged and we don't know what we're doing. There's a lot of work going on in this group behind the scenes. So you still tell me, and here's what I'm going to tell you about Mike Green. I had to slow walk him down, because he's one of those intellectuals. He came and said the dirty. Well, don't you
I know him. I know him well.
Hold on. Have you done the homework to find out we're not looking for incremental anything? We're not looking for a model program. We're not looking for anything cloaked in the name of somebody like Frederick Douglass. And then you pepper luminaries throughout the program for these superficial Negroes that I'm talking to now, right there in the chat, right here in the 80 Left family. I'm talking to my people, just like that old Negro that don't care if you don't like it, sitting at your kitchen table. If I go to your page, and you haven't liked, shared, commented, and guess what? If you don't know what to say, you got enough emojis like bombs, check marks, thumbs up. You can even make them black and look like you, or whatever shade of melanin you have. But if you're not doing the work, you don't get to come to my page or anybody else's page and tell me some shit about, well, if they do this, that'll work for reparations. I'm going to tell you this. It's as much data as I have floating in my head, and I'm lucky enough to have a brain and a memory to remember growing up from the 60s, from an outhouse to where we are now, you don't know enough to tell anybody that there's one way to get reparations. What we're fighting for is an all-comprehensive generational reparations. Not that mess that Cobra put out that was on the 6th grade level. Not how somebody can get a check and then figure out how to get a Mercedes. We're talking about all the things that Tone and Yvette have talked about. Reparative justice across the spectrum. Everything. Autonomy in our community, control over police forces, control over predatory taxing from your local representative that have your grandmother's house depressed at the same value it was when she started 40 years ago. You don't know enough to tell somebody about it needs to be one thing. If I tell you what I told Mike Green, if you wade into this conversation and tell us that have been here fighting just to have the conversation discussed in a nation that owes us a debt, and you start with saying, I think this will work to give us reparations, shut the hell up, sit down. If you can't read, we can get your audio tape. Get the likes up, get the shares up, be responsible, and know this. If you're going to name drop any of the people that are prominent in this movement, have enough respect for their 20 years worth of work, refer people to them. Don't act like you're an agent. Don't act like you work in their shop. Don't act like you're close to them. If you haven't gone back and looked at the tape of Sandy Charity from 2000 up until now, you need to shut up and get his name out your mouth. And don't you ever type anything that leaves your keyboard without first checking with him, because he got an inbox. Have respect for the people that are doing the work and do what you're capable of doing. If you can't do likes and shares, you need to shut the hell up doing some reading. Recurring training, knowing what you're talking about, is the only way we're going to win this. Know your limitations, know when to stop and say, I don't know how to explain it to you, but here's a link. And guess what? Most of y'all got iPhones and all of that shit. You can do AirDrop, you can do emails, but you don't have to be out here acting like a damn fool, running your mouth about what you think, and then you're off point. And I'm going to tell you something else. I got a few people out here in these circles that are designated leaders. If you ever go on another video and let a Mexican woman own you with a distorted joke about this rich black people and rich white people are moving poor black people out of any area, I'm coming for you by name. I'm not going to talk about the infraction you made, because if somebody tells you that the outliers, and you know how many black people there are that are, quote, rich, if they tell you that those rich people and rich white people are the reason that Atlanta or any other area is being gentrified, I'm coming at you by name. If you tell me that an opportunity zone that starts with a floor of $250,000 is good for black people, and I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm coming for you by name. Because, see, my name is out there. What I do is out there. Offers that I've had to get in front of a camera, if it was about me, I could be trying to compete on the air with what they do. That is not my interest. At 66, if I live another 14 days, I have an interest in trying to advance what I lived and saw for the last 50 years, and I've shared that with you all. I care about those that are going to get it where my black ass is probably just dust and dirt. So y'all need to get it together. Get your stuff together. Do what you're supposed to do. And guess what? All that hate you got for me, turn it into likes, shares, and some interesting comments. Much love. Do what you do.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. What's the common thread of all of Otis's call-in? Recurring training. You never stop learning. You never stop reading. You never stop listening to educational podcasts. You never stop researching. You never stop going back into what Tone and I have already said. Recurring training. That is a theme. And everything that Otis said, that is a theme. Recurring training is always a theme. Staying within the bounds, if you're going to call into Yvette's YouTube, is of YouTube's terms and conditions, is also a theme. And when we talked about what he mentioned earlier in the point, let's all be very self-disciplined in how we move about the world. Anyway, thank you, Otis, for reminding us of recurring training and how everybody got so much heat for us that they don't have for the outside world. You got a lot of heat for Otis. You got a lot to say to Otis. You got a lot to say to me. You got a lot of a backseat driving to doing what you're doing. And even y'all who have advice, like, you don't just have advice for me. What is your advice for yourself? A lot of the stuff that you say, you could be doing your own self in your own community, in your own life. Do it. I have always said that what we're doing here is bigger than Antonio, is bigger than Yvette. This is much bigger than that. We don't have a Messiah leadership kind of thing going on here. That's not how we do things, because when you have a Messiah leadership, they tend to cut it up from the root. Ain't that something? Bullets do fly. Anyway, let's not forget, fam, please hit that like button. It costs you no money. Please go to donatebrown.com if you want to donate, or patreon.com/ycarnell. How the Irish Became White. That is August the 1st. Please do not forget to tune in. We'll have a Monday show, a Wednesday show, and then we will have this as our Thursday show, August the 1st. Please do not forget. Please do not forget to hit that bell. Please do not forget to hit that subscribe button if you have not hit it already. I would appreciate it, fam. And until next time, fam. Until next time, please take care of yourself. Please take care of your neighbor. Please take care of your tribe. And please finish your libation, and don't let anybody make you feel any kind of way that you do not want to feel, fam. Put yourself and your tribe first. Until next time, I'ma holler at you.